Bargani, Salam, Gino Lako Nani, Chief Noble Bandele, El-Amin. Here again for another video. Today, we're dealing with the melanin matrix. What is the melanin matrix? We're dealing with indigenous power. The power of melanin. We're dealing with our ancient creed of our forefathers, the ancient creed of our ancestors. What we need to do to get back into our ancestral fold, if you will, being that for at least 500 years, melanated people have been under scrutiny, subjugation, enslavement, racism, which has allowed them to be not part and partial of their governments. Today, we'll deal with a little indigenous power.
When we look at the word indigenous, we've got to look at two words, indi and genos. Indigo is indi, meaning dark, pigment matter, or melanin. And genos is the originating. So looking at ourselves, we should look at ourselves as being the original people on the planet, the indigenous. These are the Science people, one of the oldest people in Africa that is Homo sapien sapien. And these people are still hunter-gatherers and live today. These are original, aboriginal, indigenous people of the land. These are good examples of how we can get back and relate.
Africa. Many of us, or many people, do not believe that Africans were indigenous to this land. Whether that is true or not, the fact is that our dark-skinned, melanated people that were here in America that do in some regards resemble Africans, or people that is misnomered as African. So that's the one. The second is there are many African people who had native counterpart. So we married or we had children with the so-called Native American, which has created a agreement or a bond with the indigenous. So many of us have indigenous, native blood through marriage, or that we are dark-skinned, melanated people in general. Not to mention that many of us came over prior to Columbus. Even if we were not here indigenous, we were here or been here under our own power, which was not under enslavement or under European colonization.
Some people want to say aliens did it, but the fact is, indigenous cultures from a long time ago built these great structures. And what's crazy is that they have similarities throughout the world. So when we talk about indigenous, we have a connection on a global scale. These are the oceanic people of the Pacific Ocean. Now look and notice that they have woolly hair. They look like aboriginals even from Australia, but they are heavily melanated. And these are people from the Pacific Oceans. So we're talking about Polynesia, Malaysia, even as far as Hawaii. And yeah, I probably showed this picture a million times, but I just can't get enough of looking at. These are the last picture of Aztecs. So if you look at both of them, you'll see their hair texture is woolly, and they definitely have melanin. They do not look like the depiction that we're normally used to seeing. These are our indigenous people. Rites of passage is important in establishing jurisdiction. You have rites of passage for your culture. No one else should impede on that culture. So when we have rites of passage, it will cover life from birth to death. And with that, you should be able to control those things that are involved with the rites of passage. Controlling rites of passage will take away power from the state.
When we're dealing with birth certificates, we're dealing with the state jurisdiction. That's why it's so important for you to reclaim your ancestral national creeds in order for you to establish your own rites of passage, which will give you your own jurisdiction and will not subjugate you to the state jurisdiction. And this is not to cause confusion with the state. It is simply a means of taking back some control over you, your family, community, and even your nation.
Being one of the most important rites of passage is birth. And when you're having birth with the state, they will take the placenta. But the placenta is part of our culture. So when you have a child, because it's part of the rites of passage, you would keep your placenta and it would stay intact with the child. It is the tree of life. Another subject in the book deals with polygamy, a very hot topic, and it can be very controversial. But nonetheless, as indigenous people, we were polygamous, especially in the African society. If you look at this, you can tell where it's outlawed or where it's permitted. But in a lot of African countries, it is permitted. So this is a topic that we need to look at and discuss. Libation is very important to funeral and ancestral rites of passage. Libation is a deep-rooted part of African indigenous culture. In the book, we will also discuss the importance of libation and in connection to how to use it with our culture. As you can tell, in many places, we use libation, opening ceremonies, closing ceremonies, and whatnot.
Why are we paying taxes, people? Taxes should not be paid by indigenous people. When you go to a place that you do business, let them know. If you have your nationality card with the proper information and you give it to them, then they will acknowledge it. They will honor your indigenous rights. Will you?
Establishing your indigenous status will also give you the ability to be tax exempt. As indigenous, dark-skinned, melanated people, we are inheritors of the land, but we are also exempt from certain taxes due to our status. So this is another aspect of being indigenous. We are what we eat. And when we, as indigenous people, eat things that are not indigenous, they will cause dis-ease. But also, we should eat foods that are culturally based. Foods that are considered to be nutritious for our bodies. The way that we enforce our cultural beliefs is to document these through the use of affidavits. We have various affidavits that are used to replace what are known as certificates and in some instances licensing. These are our indigenous rights.